And so then from there, it's led you, and I'm interested because I really want to know how from this moment it's led you into doing the work that you're doing now.
Okay.
And maybe it's probably good to highlight just for everybody listening, what is the setup of the way that you teach now?
Okay, so for 9 months, I couldn't teach at all.
Yeah.
But during that time, I went back to uni online and completed a grad certificate of education research. So that was keeping me mentally stimulated while I was socially ostracized, basically. And I was also researching the homeschool community or any avenue that I felt that I might be able to continue teaching in. So I looked at Montessori, I looked at Steiner, doors were closed. I looked at cooperative setups who, were completely run by parents in some of the smaller little towns outside of Melbourne. And they were also, you've got to be vaxxed. And I was like, well, where am I going to teach? So I started visiting people in homeschool setups. Some were, play dates in the park. Some were coffees at people's houses. And I was learning about the homeschool environment and how families manage that.
Yeah.
Because they do it very differently. So I had to learn a lot to see what those families wanted for their children, how they taught them at home, and how having a teacher part-time could benefit their children. And it seemed that some people were really after having a couple of days a week with a teacher to facilitate small group learning that they couldn't replicate at home.
Yeah.
Because if you've only got 1 or 2 kids at home, there's only so much they can do together in learning. So I was lucky to I stumbled across another little setup. I went to visit. The teacher and I just clicked instantly. We were totally on the same page. And a couple of months later, she messaged me and said, next year, I'm going to be working with this group. Would you like to come and join us? We need a second teacher.
Whoa.
And I was like, yeah, that sounds brilliant. I'd love that. So this was all of last year, all of 2023.
Yeah.
So this teacher was teaching the 4 and 5-year-olds, and I had a group of 6 to 9-year-olds. And we run 2 days a week from 10 till 2 each day. And the parents have organised where we operate from. And they do a parent roster, so you always have a helper. And us teachers, we turn up, we plan the content, and we teach the small groups.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
How many children in total do you have?
There's about 20 in the group.
Yeah.
There's more in the younger group than the older group. So we do have space for a few more in the older group.
And is it difficult to get doing something like this, like getting approval? Like in terms of the regulatory side of things, like
I don't deal with that. I don't know anything about it. That's left to the parents.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they organise all that,
and then they can bring you in as a teacher to do your thing.
Because it's basically just like a tutor going to someone's house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you feel like the kids respond to that sort of learning?
They love it.
They love it.
And in the last year, they have made so much growth. And for me as a teacher to be able to work with just a small group, I mean, they're so lucky because they get so much more than what they would in school. In school, because I do still teach in schools 2 or 3 days a week.
Yep.
You have about 25 kids in a class, 1 teacher. You're lucky if you get to spend 5 minutes with a kid each day. In this setup, I am working one-on-one with them all the time, as and when they need me. And even though there's an age range and an ability range, because it's such a small group, I can modify things so easily for each child, or extend this one, or work more hands-on with this one who needs a little bit of extra support, So as a teacher, it's super rewarding. The kids, I have a really great connection and rapport with them, and their confidence and self-esteem has grown so much this year. And I know that the families are so happy with how their kids are learning not only from me, but from each other.
Yeah.
And they get to do they'd play a lot of games and maths games, and we do little excursions and stuff that you just don't get to do in schools.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And so with these, I presume many of these children were in formal school prior to COVID kicking off.
Yeah.
Obviously, some of them are quite young, so they might
Yeah.
not have been in school at that point. But
The younger ones have never had any formal schooling,
Yeah.
but most of the kids in my group have.
wow, and so how do they ever talk about their
Yeah.
experience between
They love homeschooling.
school before?
And it's not because they're sitting around at home, just playing. They're not. These families, and I know it's not the same with all homeschooling families,
Of course.
but these families are really proactive. They have their structure. So Monday and Tuesday, they're with me. The rest of the week, they do other catch-ups. They do excursions together. Most of them speak a second language. They play piano. They do sports. Some do kumon. They are so well-rounded. And they probably do a lot more than what a child would receive in a regular school setup.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that, because if they're doing, like, I was trying to think, like, realistically, how much time does a child need to be spending at school in, like, the normal structure?
Yeah.
Like 6.5 hours a day learning all those classic subjects. Like, when I recall my experience of school, it feels like if it was set up in a different way, you would need a fraction of the time to kind of learn all of that same
Yeah.
information,
Yeah, you do.
whilst you can do everything else.
Yeah.
And I guess they're still getting this social aspect from it as well, because I know
And
that
that's a big part of it.
because I know that when I've spoken to people about homeschooling, one of the biggest arguments is, well, no, you go to school so you can learn the social skills, because that's the most important thing that you
Yeah.
need in life, which I can see by the setup that you've got going on is different to maybe some children out there who are just doing homeschool and they're by
Yeah.
themselves all
Yeah.
day.
And I think for the parents, the big focus is they want their kids to come to this group because they mix with the same kids every week. So they build those friendships.
Yeah.
Some of the homeschool meetups that they have, 1 week you'll go and some kids will be there. The next week they won't be there.
Yeah.
But here they have that consistency and they know every week those friends will be there and they all get to work in a group together. Sometimes I separate them and I'll have those two kids working together and those two kids working together. Sometimes I have like ability working together. Sometimes I have very different ability working together so that they can learn from each other as well.
Yeah.
My big focus is on developing their social skills.
Yeah.
So whatever we do, it's about collaborative learning. It's about taking turns. It's about sharing. Because sometimes if you're just at home and it's just you and your parents, you can, you get a lot more attention and time to talk.
Of course. Yeah.
And they have to learn how to take turns and let others talk.
Yeah.
So we're covering a lot of social etiquette and social well-being and just how to be a member of society, in a community.
Yeah, of course. And so then you said that you have one of the parents from whichever family will sit in with you and help out and get amongst it basically on any given day.
Yeah, which is great for the parents because they love that. They can see exactly what their kids are learning and not only what they're learning, but how I teach that.
Yeah.
Because then they can replicate some of that at home as well.
Because I think that's one of the biggest fear for a lot of parents out there at the moment is they feel like they don't know what their children are learning in school. Like they don't know what they're being taught or how they're being taught, what kind of information is being given to them. And they have no control over it, basically.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Whereas so we work Mondays and Tuesdays together. And on Tuesday afternoon, I send a whole group chat message about everything that I've covered, including photos of what we've done in those sessions as well, so that they know that when they continue with their own learning at home, this is a focus that we've been working on this week. They can continue, going on that. And for their own homeschooling records, they need to keep account of what their kids are learning.
Yeah.
So they can say, like, this week in literacy, this has been covered, so they can tick the boxes.
Because there's certain
as well.
markers that have to be covered in when you're registered under homeschooling, right?
Yeah.
Like you still have to accomplish certain things across the board.
Yeah. And I think they have to keep like a portfolio or some evidence of learning. So by me supplying this information every week with photos and their workbooks, they've got all that evidence. It makes it super easy for them to keep track of that.
And do you know of other groups who are doing the same thing as you?
Yeah.
You do?
There's not many, but there is one out my way.
Yeah.
And they're doing it on a bigger scale.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they operate 5 days a week. And I think 2 days is one age group, then 2 or 3 days a different age group. So they cater from prep to year 6. Whereas we only cater from, I'd say like pre-prep, like maybe kinder to about grade 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not a teacher, obviously, so my understanding of the education system is pretty limited in terms of how flexible and how much freedom that you have in, like, say, a state school. When you're in the state school, how much freedom did you have to be able to teach what you want, or were you following a pretty rigid structure?
Yeah, not much freedom at all.
Yeah.
Which now I love because my planning is less, but it's more thorough.
Yeah.
Because I'm planning for exactly what those kids need. And because I've only got such a small class, it doesn't take me, I'd say in the state system, I'd be working 60 hours a week,
Yeah.
but paid for 38.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I spend less time planning, but I'm giving so much more to the kids.
Yeah.
And I don't have all the assessments and paperwork and issues going on within school and with parents. If the parents have an issue or a problem, because there's so few of them, you know, the communication is direct, it's instant. They either chat to me when they pick their kids up or quick message and everything gets resolved.
Because everybody would be on it all the time, right? So you can just, like you
Yeah.
said, through your communication, you can just constantly work
Yeah.
with each other and upgrade.
Yeah.
I guess I'm sure this is one reason. I'm sure there's other reasons for it. But when it comes to exams and marking papers and ticking everything off, it's really just to make sure that all the right things are happening, because it's
Yeah.
on such a large scale. It's
Yeah.
pretty hard to really be personable and watch it all happening,
Yeah.
essentially. So the teachers and the parents need to see some sort of proof, right?
Yeah.
But in your system, it seems that they can just, everybody can see what's going on at all times.
All times. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. That is seriously so cool.